Let's get started by downloading and installing the WooCommerce plugin. There's a couple of ways to do this. The easiest way is to install the plugin from within your WordPress site. Let's go to Plugins, Add New, then we can type in WooCommerce and install the one from Automatic, and that's it. In a future video, we'll activate the plugin and cover the welcome wizard, and if you want to, you can skip ahead and do that right now. The other way to install WooCommerce is to go through the official sign up on woocommerce.com. This way is going to be a bit longer, but they'll ask you a bunch of questions, and when we answer them, they'll know a little bit more about us. That means they'll be able to send us relevant content. And if you're new to e-commerce or WooCommerce, it's helpful to be on their newsletter and get content that's perfectly suited to you. So, from the home page on WooCommerce, there should be a button or a link called Get Started, which will take us to woocommerce.com/start. That will prompt us to create a WordPress.com account. Since Automatic is the company behind WordPress.com and WooCommerce, they now share accounts, so you only need one. I'll go ahead and click Already Have a WordPress.com account. I'll enter my email, type in my password, and click Login. If you have two-factor authentication enabled on your account, which, by the way, I always recommend, then you'll have to authenticate before continuing. On step 2, we choose if we're building this site for ourselves or for a client. H+ Sports is a client of mine, so I'll select this as a site for someone else. On step 3, we'll choose an industry, and in this case, I'm going to choose health and beauty as well as fashion and apparel, and click Continue. On the next step, we'll choose what type of products we're selling. I'll select both physical and digital products. The next screen is all about how customers are going to pay. WooCommerce is a really powerful system. With a couple of extra plugins, you can pay in a lot of different ways. The vast majority of purchases are going to be one-time payments, but there are extra options such as subscriptions and pre-orders. For right now, we'll start with just one-time payments. On this next screen, they help you pick a host, which already has WooCommerce pre-installed, or they help you install a plugin with the second option. The last option will download the zip file, which you can upload to your site. If you have a test website, I recommend the second option, which is what I'm going to do. I'll type in my URL here, I'll just copy it, and please note that if your site loads in HTTPS, you want to make sure you include that S here. Otherwise this won't work. Let's click Continue. And here it is, installing the plugin for us. Let's click Install now. And we're done. We've covered the easy way to install WooCommerce, and the longer way that gives WooCommerce a little bit of data about us and our store so they can send up targeted emails down the line. We'll activate the plugin and go through the welcome wizard in a future video. Once you've installed the plugin, we need to activate it. And as soon as you do this, the welcome wizard will pop up. Let's go to WooCommerce and click Activate. And here is the welcome wizard. Going through the welcome wizard will configure all of the essential settings. You don't have to go through the wizard, but then it's a bit confusing what settings need to be configured for you to actually run a store. So I strongly recommend going through this process. The first step is all about your store, specifically where it is located and what currency you use. The store location is important because it is what WooCommerce uses to help calculate taxes as well as live shipping rates. If you have more than one location or warehouse, just enter the main one for right now. The currency is, of course, used for payment during checkout and for displaying prices on the product page. And the types of products you're selling at the bottom will configure a few extra settings related to shipping. For our store, we'll want to select both physical and digital. Usage tracking, at the bottom, lets WooCommerce know about our store, specifically what plugins we have installed and what settings we're using. This helps them make better software in the future. So if you're running a live site, I recommend checking this box. Since this is a demo site I'm creating for this course, I'm going to leave it off. Let's click Let's Go. This page is all about payments, and WooCommerce will help you install a few different ways to accept payment. I tend to recommend stores to use 2 different payment methods just in case one isn't working. Stripe is a payment gateway. Payment gateways process credit cards for your site. In most cases, when a user checks out, the credit card number goes straight to the payment gateway, which confirms the payment is legitimate, and then it draws the funds and sends your site a notification that payment was successful. Your site then completes checkout and displays the order complete page to the user. Stripe is just one payment gateway, and there are hundreds of them out there. I'm going to use Stripe because they have excellent customer service. On one of the first e-commerce sites I built, there was an issue depositing $10,000, and I was able to get in touch with the customer support and resolve the issue. When you're dealing with tens of thousands of dollars, you really want to have that good customer support. If you want more information about payment gateways, I recommend reading this page on woocommerce.com. It'll list all the payment gateways available to you. The other common way of accepting payment is PayPal, which is basically where someone has money stored online and they use that account to pay for goods and services. If you have PayPal installed on your site, there will be a button on the checkout that redirects the customer to PayPal, where they log in and pay for that order. Then they come back to the store, and PayPal notifies the store about payment. I'm going to leave both of these options turned on, since I want 2 payment gateways, but I want to disable the check boxes to create new accounts, since I already have an account for both. Before we continue, I want to point out something that's happening behind the scenes. For both of these options, this wizard is actually downloading and installing a free plugin from WordPress.org. So if you see an extra plugin or 2 on your site, now you know why. And if you aren't going through the welcome wizard, you'll have to find and download these plugins manually from WordPress.org. If you scroll down a little bit, there are extra ways of accepting payment, like check or cash on delivery. Let's click continue. This next step is all about shipping and the dimensions and units that we'll use in our store. We're going to talk about shipping zones later in this course. What you need to know right now is that there are different shipping zones and each zone can have entirely different settings. So for the United States, let's go ahead and change this to free shipping. And for areas outside of the United States, let's charge a flat rate. And for right now, I'll just say $20. Further down, we'll leave the checkbox enabled to print shipping labels at home. And then based on the location we set earlier, WooCommerce will guess that we want to use ounces and inches for product dimensions, but we can change this to whatever we want. We'll go into detail on different shipping methods and how to print labels later in this course, and we'll continue the welcome wizard in the next video. We're going to continue where we left off with the welcome wizard. We filled out the shipping information, and we're going to click the button to continue to the recommended section. This page prompts us to install a bunch of related services including the storefront theme, automated taxes, MailChimp for WooCommerce, and Facebook for WooCommerce. I highly recommend Storefront since it includes so much free functionality. It is a great starting point for many stores. If you've never built a WooCommerce site before, give Storefront a try to see how everything looks in it, and then if you want to use a different theme later on, you can. There is also a feature called automated taxes, which we definitely want to turn on. This lets WooCommerce services import tax rates for us. Taxes are a really complex subject. The one limitation of automated taxes is that at the moment it only works when you have nexus in one region. So if you have stores, employees, or warehouses in multiple states, you'll very likely have nexus in those other states, and you can't use this feature. And later in this course I'll show you how you can configure your taxes manually. The last 2 options are MailChimp and Facebook. We'll cover both of these a little bit later in this course, so I'll actually deactivate them for right now. Since we want automated taxes, we need to connect to WordPress.com, which powers all of this functionality. And in order to do that, we need to connect our store via Jetpack, which is a free plugin offered by WordPress.com. If you don't want to use Jetpack, you don't have to. You just won't be able to use the free live rates or the automated taxes included with it. Let's click the button. And while we're waiting for this to load, it's worth pointing out that you have to have a live site to use this functionality. By live site, I mean something that is publicly accessible. So, if you are developing the site locally, for example, then you can't connect to WordPress.com and this functionality won't work. When you're developing an e-commerce site, there's a lot of functionality that needs to run on a publicly accessible site, so I strongly recommend a test or live site instead of developing locally. And it looks like we're connected to WordPress.com, and we've gone through the welcome wizard. This big button right here will help us create our first product, which we'll do in a future video. But before we do, I'm going to do one sneaky thing, and that's to make this video course a bit easier for you to follow. I'm going to open a new tab here, and I'm going to copy this URL and go to my backend. And you can see that there's a lot of nags at the top of the screen, so many that you can't actually see the content on the screen, which is all the way down here. That's going to make following this course really hard to follow. These nags are useful since they're reminding me to set up my store, but I want to do a bunch of other things first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable the Stripe plugin and the PayPal Express plugin. I'll go to Plugins, I'll disable PayPal and Stripe. And the biggest nag up here is for designing our store. I'll go to Appearance, and I'll go back to 2019. And if you look at our dashboard now, it is a lot cleaner. We're recording this video right before WooCommerce Admin gets merged into WooCommerce Core. This is a complete revamp of the admin experience for WooCommerce, and we see a notice to install the beta plugin. I'm going to do that so you will see that new admin. However, by the time you're watching this course, it will likely be merged into WooCommerce itself and you won't even see this nag. So if you see it, go ahead and install the WooCommerce Admin plugin.